In this video, we're giving away a pair of Rayban sunglasses to one lucky viewer. All you need to do is tell us, how did Simran describe the Bajaj Pulsar N160? Watch the full video to find the answer and drop it in the comment section below to stand a chance to win.
50 vehicles, over 5,500 horsepower, 15 crores worth. This is our 16th anniversary special, the best of 2022.
Before we go ahead, here's a brief on what is the best of 2022. Essentially, we take all the new bikes for the year, and we mean properly new ones, not just minor facelifts, and then we head to the Buddh International Circuit to test them out. Each bike sets a lap time which makes up part of its total score, while the overall scoring sheet also accounts for each aspect of a bike and is judged by our team of experienced motoring journalists. After the scoring is complete, we compile the numbers, average them out to remove the bias, and then the top 3 bikes are crowned the best of 2022. And of course, we also have a special award for the Performance Bike of the Year. Before we get to the awards though, we also do a jury round where members of the jury, they get to pick their highlights of the year and the bikes that put the widest grin on their faces.
Okay, so the best of 2022 had a lot of interesting bikes. We had some really beautiful machinery out here.
Alright, so our best of 2022 has just come to an end, and I am excited to share with you my views on the motorcycles that I rode here at the track over the last 2 days.
The KTM RC 390 is definitely one of the main highlights of this anniversary track day, because this is a motorcycle I probably enjoyed the most, along with the G310RR. Now we have done a whole comparison with these two motorcycles, so you'll watch that later. But as for this jury round, I think KTM has got all the bases covered. It is now a perfect sports bike for India because it has got the performance, it has got the kit, the suspension also, they have softened it up a little, but overall, in the bigger scheme of things, I think this is a great motorcycle. And of course the looks, you might say that it is a bit controversial, but I actually like it. It has grown on me. So I think this is one of the key contenders for best of 2022.
I mean, RC 390 KTMs, they've always been very track friendly, they've always been track bikes, and they've always been very aggressive. But the thing I like about this motorcycle is, this specific generation of the motorcycle, is the fact that it's friendly also. It's obviously on the edge, but it allows even tamer riders to go and extract everything out there that is possible to extract from the motorcycle.
I expected it to be a little more sharper. It's not really that sharp. It's a little bit too soft for my liking, which means in terms of the turn-in, it just takes a little bit more muscling in. That's not to say that it's a bad bike. It's actually great for the track. If you're looking for affordable motorcycle that you can take out on track, the KTM RC 390 is a great package. The quick shifter, it really helps you get fire through those gears whenever you want to. When you want to downshift right before a corner, you can just bang those gears home. So it's perfectly capable of that.
Now the only electric two-wheeler we had this year was the Ola S1 Pro. Now Ola, it's been in the news for all the wrong reasons and right reasons as well. But of course, there are a lot of customer complaints and some customers are not happy. There is a delay in terms of customer deliveries. But all that aside, as a product, well, I think they've got, again, everything right with that product. It is priced really well. It has got a decent range. The real world range of that scooter is close to 130 or 140 kilometers. That is quite good. It has got a lot of features. It has that touch screen, which is quite crisp to use. So in terms of features, in terms of equipment, that has got everything. It is cutting edge, and even to ride, it is a very well sorted package. So on the track, I was surprised to see close to 110 kilometers per hour on that scooter. It is quite quick. We had the Suzuki Avenue with us as well, so I was lapping both these scooters, but the Ola felt much quicker. It was also more stable despite having smaller wheels. It was very stable and it goes around the track like it belongs there. Especially in hyper mode, it has got a lot of performance. It's very quick off the line. So for me, I think if I have to judge Ola, the S1 Pro as a product, I don't see anything wrong with it. Of course, there have been a lot of glitches for customers, and after-sales service is not that great till now. But as a product, I don't see anything wrong with it if you take the after-sales experience away from it.
I firstly had my eyes on the Hypermotard even before I rode it. The minute I saw it, I really wanted to ride it all the time. But let's talk about the bikes that are my personal favorites. Firstly, yes, the Hypermotard. Just the fact that it looks like a motocross, supermoto, everything combined into one. And then you have a superbike engine that always just wants to go all the time. So the Hypermotard, in terms of the fun factor, in terms of just smiles that it can give you, the Hypermotard is unmatched even in this company that it has, and that is of course company of fantastic bikes. The Hypermotard for me, when it comes to fun, is number one. You can't really push it out on track too much, but that said, you'll be surprised at how much you can push it considering what it looks like.
Then we also had a bunch of new motorcycles from Moto, Morini and Zontes. And while I had a few problems with the Zontes in the sense that it was very revvy, out on the track, the Roadster, the naked street bike, it was very sharp in its handling, and I have to give it praise for that. If they could have just removed the vibes from that engine, I think it would have been a very, very nice package. There was an ADV as well. We put it through its paces. It was somewhere in the middle, not something, there's nothing I want to complain about that motorcycle, or there's no praise I want to give to it, I think, but it's the vibey engine that was the only buzzkill for me. Another motorcycle that I have missed and is from the Royal Enfield fold is the Scram. Now, I've ridden the Scram extensively, and obviously the track is not its natural habitat, but over here it did not disappoint. It just did the basics well. Yeah, it's obviously not going to turn in the fastest, but was not something that you found lacking. Probably the braking a little bit, the brakes obviously you found those to be a little bit lacking on the track, but I'm not going to hold it against the Scram because obviously it's not a track motorcycle.
Next we'll move on to another Ducati, which is the Streetfighter V2. Man, that bike is like the gods from heaven have come down and stitched together this piece of machinery that looks just fantastic. I think the Streetfighter V2 looks like it's going 200 miles an hour even when it's standing still. It rides so well, it's so stable, you can really push it hard out on track. I think the Streetfighter V2 is the fastest bike that we tested out on track. That's for good reason. It's got the electronics, it's got the power, it's got the tires. So the Streetfighter V2 is a complete package. And then if you want to sort of ride it on the road, you probably can get away with it because it's that, you know, that sort of naked position. So you can sort of ride it on the road as well. So it gets some points on practicality as well.
In typical Ducati fashion, that has just boot full of torque. Every time you open the throttle, there is just torque flowing from everywhere. So it is a little scary if you are a new rider. It isn't as forgiving as the Katana, but the handling, the electronics on that thing, just mind-blowing. We rode the Panigale V2 a couple of years ago. That was our performance bike of the year in 2020. This bike has the same ingredient, but it's naked. It's meant for the road, but out on the track also, it's just as mad and it's just as good. Even the lap times were very close to the fully faired version.
Then we move on to something a little different. That's the Harley Sportster S. Now, I've ridden the Sportster S before in the city. Out here on track, it was an interesting bike to ride. Firstly, it doesn't want to turn in, so you have to really muscle it around. But of course, it is not a track bike. But if you look at it for what it's trying to appeal to, the Sportster S is really, really good. It's got the muscle, it looks nice and brawny. So it definitely has the road presence that you want from a big, brutish Harley-Davidson. It also has the sound, that Revolution Max engine is also great. So it's a huge step up when it comes to what we've expected from Harley-Davidsons. The Nightster is also a great machine. It's got a slightly smaller engine, so it's the 975cc engine, but again, a really nice bike to ride around in.
Now, one of the bikes that really surprised us is the Bajaj Pulsar 160. That was super refined. In fact, Simran, when he was lapping that motorcycle, he thought, I mean, he said that he thought it's like an electric motorcycle because it's so refined. You don't expect it from Bajaj, but then that is just mind-blowing. Even the handling is pretty good, but as it turns out, it is a mass market motorcycle. So the tires are average, handling is kick-ass. There's not a lot of performance, but then again, for the price, it is quite good. Now, there were some interesting motorcycles, including the Keyway V302C, made in China. But there is nothing wrong with that motorcycle. You think that it's Chinese, so you know your immediate reaction is going to be you don't quite like it or you think it's subpar. But I think in terms of quality and in terms of ride and handling also, it was quite good, especially around corners. It felt very stable. And that is a good motorcycle. It looks quite cool also. It's not cramped, although it looks small, but it's not cramped, so you can ride it very comfortably. Now, the only problem with that motorcycle is that it has come out of nowhere. So buying a motorcycle at that price point, well, that will deter a lot of buyers.
G310RR that we have also with us on the track. And of course, the G310RR is also very sharp in terms of handling. So overall, we've had a great mix of bikes in the best of 2022.
Okay, another bike that needs a very special mention and was a close contender for me when it comes to picking my favorite motorcycle was the BMW G310 RR. Now, obviously, you know the RC390 was my favorite, but the reason I'm picking the G310 RR over here is because it's a super friendly motorcycle to ride and it's fast on track. It's meant for track and street riding, and I think it hits the sweet spot in the middle of those two. The only reason I'm not picking it is because of the fact that when it comes to acceleration, the KTM just leaves it in its dust, and that's where the problem for me is. Sometimes riding on track, trying to keep up with the KTM, I was kind of just revving its guts out, and it was not the nicest of feelings being left in the KTM's dust. So if the acceleration could have been a little bit better, I think the G310RR would have been my favorite motorcycle, but well, the KTM's taken that one.
Now, the surprise element of this track day was the BMW G310RR. I didn't expect it to be that great. In the sense, on the track, it felt phenomenal. We know the RR310, the TVS Apache RR310, it's a great motorcycle. But the BMW version, it comes with fewer features. It has inferior tires and it doesn't come with adjustable suspension. But despite that, on the track, well, it could give the KTM a run for its money. In the sense, around corners, we felt it was faster. It had better corner speed than the KTM. It just lacks that outright grunt of the KTM. But if you sort that out, that is a more forgiving, more enjoyable, and I think a more stable motorcycle overall. So if you talk about ride dynamics, well, I think the BMW G310R is a great package. Of course, it is a little expensive. It just comes with BMW logos and BMW paint scheme. But as a motorcycle, I think I was pleasantly surprised by the G310RR.
Then there's also, of course, the Triumph Tiger 1200, which is completely out of place on the racetrack, you would think, but actually you can really ride it well because the chassis, everything about the Triumph Tiger 1200 is really well balanced, so you can push it out. Of course, it has all the electronics, all the features that you need from a bike at that price point. It really has the power to really go on these straights. So the Tiger 1200 is also a super duper fun bike to ride.
With the Tiger 1200, Triumph has made it clear that they are going after the BMW R1250 GS. Now that is the benchmark in that segment, but I think for the price, what the Tiger does in terms of handling, in terms of engine performance, I think it is quite close to the GS, if not better. But overall on the track also, it's phenomenal. The balance it has is just mind-blowing. You can probably put your knee down on that motorcycle. The one we had was the Rally Pro, not suited for this environment, but if you have the street version with alloy wheels and road tires, I'm sure it can do a better lap time than what we achieved today. But overall, again, in the larger scheme of things, that is a very good motorcycle and it's also priced really well.
Now, one of my favorite bikes actually also has to be the Suzuki Katana. Man, at rupees 13 lakh, that bike is almost a steal. It's a liter class motorcycle. It sounds like a symphony from heaven. It sounds beautiful. Everyone out on track have been raving about how the Katana sounds, and thankfully the sound is matched by a fantastic ride. The Katana is probably the second fastest bike that we had tested out on track, and the Katana is really, really good. Okay, yes, some of the electronics are a little more rudimentary than say some of the Ducatis, But the Katana, for what it offers in terms of the engine, in terms of the performance, in terms of just how it looks and the appeal of that motorcycle, the fact that it's so different, that retro look coming back, I think the Katana is fantastic. Yes, if I had to pick one to go home in, it would probably be the Hypermotard, but the second, and a close second, would probably be the Suzuki Katana.
So the Suzuki has got an inline-4 engine. It's very smooth, it is rev happy, and it just goes. So you can open that throttle on that motorcycle anytime you want. It just won't throw you off. It is a very forgiving motorcycle. It makes all the right noises as well. And I think even in terms of handling, it is quite great. Now, the only problem with that motorcycle is the geometry, because the front end, it is a bit resistant in the sense to change direction. It's not as quick turning as the Streetfighter V4, but once leaned over, it is super stable, and it comes with adjustable suspension, so you can fiddle around with that and find the perfect setting for you. So even on the racetrack, I think that is a great motorcycle. We weren't expecting it to be as good, but like I said, the lap times are quite surprising. The Tiger 660 is based on the same underpinnings as the Trident 660, same engine, same everything. The suspension has more travel, of course. It's not an ADV, it's a sports tourer at best, but again, on the track, it feels quite composed. It has got everything going for it. The steering, the engine performance, everything is quite good. The only problem with that motorcycle is that it's neither here nor there, in the sense it's not an ADV and it's not an naked motorcycle as well. So it has sort of that confused identity. I don't think you can take it off-road, and on the road, if you want to buy a motorcycle, I think it's a little expensive and you're better off with the Trident 660. Now, another problem with that motorcycle is the traction control system. It's very intrusive and I don't quite enjoy it. It feels like you are riding a learner's motorcycle, which it is in European markets, but in India, if you're coming up from a KTM 390 or any other motorcycle, you won't enjoy it.
Now, first of all, I think I have to give special praise to the Royal Enfield Hunter. We don't expect Royal Enfield bikes to be really sporty, but out here on the track, it really proved itself. It really proved its merit. It showed that this sporty Royal Enfield is going to attract a lot more people into the Royal Enfield 4.
Now, that motorcycle, it has again got everything going for it. It has got a great engine, the J series Royal Enfield engine. It's a proven engine. It's been around for a while. It's very refined, very peppy, and the chassis, the new chassis of the Hunter, it is a roadster. So that means the geometry is very sharp, and on the track also you can feel it. The only letdown is perhaps the tires, but overall, again, as a product, as a package, I think it is great value for money, and it does everything that you ask from it. Now, the best part about the Hunter is, of course, its pricing, and I think that will elevate it to, again, to the top of the score sheet. But let's see, we don't have the final scores now, but we'll figure that out later.
Next, I think I'll have to talk about the TVS Ronin, which is standing here next to me. It's obviously a very natural rival to the Royal Enfield Hunter. I would have to say this, that I found the Hunter's experience to be a little bit better.
It is again a great motorcycle. This is TVS's first attempt at making a retro motorcycle. They are going after Royal Enfield, especially the Hunter 350, although that motorcycle came after this. So again, it has got those TVS bits. This motorcycle is more TVS. It is more street naked than a cruiser motorcycle or a retro modern scrambler, whatever you want to say. And that's the problem with this motorcycle. You don't know what to call it. It doesn't look like a scrambler. It's not a cruiser as well. The way it rides, the engine is quite peppy, but it's revvy, so it feels like a naked motorcycle. It has that Apache genes. So this is a confused motorcycle in that sense, but objectively, there's nothing wrong with it. The handling is phenomenal on the track. You'll absolutely love this motorcycle. As you'd expect from TVS, this has got everything going for it.
Now, we also had a bunch of Ducatis on the track, and while people might prefer the Streetfighter V2 or the Hypermotard, I think it was the Multistrada V2 S that was my favorite. It was for the fact that it was kind of in between the Hypermotard and the Streetfighter for me, not too aggressive, not too tame, or even the seating posture I kind of liked. It's something I thought I could see myself riding every day. So that's there.
Another great motorcycle, as always, is the Multistrada. It is the V2 now. It used to be 950, but now it's called the V2. Same engine, but updated electronics, and it looks quite cool. New paint scheme as well. But as you'd expect from a Multistrada, it is just a mad motorcycle. Even on the racetrack, it was quite good. The handling is phenomenal. The electronics are just out of this world. The only negative I could think of is probably it's a little too expensive for a 950cc bike. And again, if you're buying a Multistrada, I think you should go get the whole deal. That is the V4S. More expensive, of course, but that is the true Multistrada in every sense. But for the V2, it is nearly perfect. But yeah, it doesn't have that sort of brand value as a Multistrada V4, the big Multistradas. Now, one more motorcycle that I wanted to talk about is the Suzuki V-Strom SX. It is based on similar underpinnings as the Gixxer 250. And on the track also, it feels quite stable, but the problem is, again, it's not meant for these roads. It has got a bigger front wheel, so the steering is sort of lazy, and the tires are also a little off-road focused, so it isn't meant for these sort of roads. What I felt personally was that the steering was too slow, especially on the track, and it doesn't really enjoy it because of the tires and the suspension as well as the steering. Great motorcycle, it is very refined. The gearing is spot on because that engine has a lot of grunt. It has got a very strong range. So out on the road in real world conditions, of course, it is a great motorcycle. Balance wise also, I think that's great. But again, the tires and the suspension and the geometry, the bigger front wheel, I think those are the only letdown if you want to ride that motorcycle hard.
Stay tuned because up next will be the awards video where, based on the scoring sheets, we will announce the 3 bikes that make up the best of 2022 as well as our performance bike of the year.